Right, hi guys. So before we start, please go and click the subscribe button and the little notification bell, then you know when I'm uploading a new video. This is going to be quite a long one. Well, not a long one. I'm just basically, I've scripted a little bit here because I don't normally script or anything, so I've written down my ideas. So I thought I'd try a new approach to it all. And because I go a lot, and unfortunately it's because I'm normally just thinking about stuff and just blurting it out. So anyway, so the A7R4, which I own right now, has been a great camera. It has a couple of issues with one lens that it's not the end of the world, but it was a bit annoying. But obviously the release of the Sony A1 has blown the water out of loads of people's ideas of what the cameras now should be able to do and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, having this A1 Mega Beast mode camera is amazing, but you know, what can we expect in the future? That's one thing. The last couple of days I've seen some of the big YouTubers, whatever, doing reviews on it. They've got their review packages with the A1 and memory cards and all that sort of stuff to try out. So it's interesting to see what some of them are saying. There's a bit of controversy, some saying it's pretty crap, some saying pretty crap in some respects, it's got problems where it won't do this and that, but is that user error? I don't know. So in my mind at the moment, I've got £6,500. Do I really need to upgrade now? Ideally, for what I do, I'm an all-round camera kind of man. You know, I use a bit of video. I do mostly, obviously, photography. But the types of photography I do are anywhere between sports to, you know, action shots with wildlife and dancers and things like that, to some being inside with LED lighting, which is where the anti-flicker mode thing was really quite a cool thing to be able to have. Obviously some in studio, some portraiture outside, inside, product work. So the 50 megapixel thing, even though obviously the A7R4 has 60 megapixels, back down to 50s, I mean it's tons anyway, that's no real drama. And we've still got the 200 megapixel pixel shift thing, so if you really need the extra resolution for large scale printing, not really a problem. The other thing is, you know, what do we expect from Canon and Nikon? What are they going to release now? Not that it really bothers me whatsoever, because I'm a Sony user. So in the same respect is that, you know, we've got to have competition to push more innovation. So where you've got Canon releasing something like the R5 or Nikon releasing something, I don't know, but you know, Sony are always going to be pushing the technology advancements, which they have. They've innovated a couple of new things, like basically mechanical shutterless flash. So you know, it doesn't need that so much anymore. So we're heading that way. So that's really kind of cool. So there's lots of things in there that, you know, it's moved that much further forward. You know, I'm not a brand person. I don't really care what people use. At the end of the day, you make your own choice for what you like or what you need and how much money you have. It's all down to personal choice. You know, I have used Nikon in the past, in the film days, and I have used Pentax. I have used a Canon or two. I never owned one, but you know, it's not, you know, it's how you get to use your kit. You know, once you learn the menu system, once you learn where the buttons are, the custom buttons you've set up, and all of that, and you've worked out what its sort of negatives are, because nothing's perfect. You know, once you've worked out a technique to get around those negatives, it's, you know, you're going to get the shots at the end of the day. You know, the modern technology side of things, you know, I've been using the RX10 Mark IV for 3 and a bit years now, and that's got 24 frames per second. So it's not like I haven't been used to almost 30 frames per second. You know, it's a really handy bit of kit, and I use the 24 frames per second quite a bit, you know, for fast moving subjects and when trying to get bursts of things, a bit like the dance, you know, when people are doing flips and stuff like that, where the A7R4 can only do 10, and sometimes you miss those shots. So, you know, I have utilised the other camera for those sort of things. High speed video, so 120 frames upwards. You know, there's all those sort of things that are absolutely really handy to have. It really allows you some really smooth or slow motion video, which is great. So the A1 for me really ticks loads and loads of boxes, but I'm still thinking, my mind's doing this at the moment. Do I buy it or not? You know, I've got it on pre-order. You know, I don't have to make that decision right now. and waiting for, I think it's the 4th or 5th of February for the bigger YouTubers to actually release some images and show you what they can really do with it is going to be the deciding factor if I really go ahead with it or not. And I think, you know, that's going to be the major thing there. So anyway, so technology advancements in the last 5 years has been mad. I mean, I went from the A7R2. I mean, way before that, I've had the A700, the A99, or even the A900 before that. So I've started off in Sony in the sort of earlier years when they first took over Konica Minolta, and you know, had the piss taken out of me for years from Nikon users and Canon users. Oh, you should have bought a Canon, you should have bought a Nikon. Yeah, okay. You know, it's down to what you're used to using at the end of the day, like I said. So, you know, when Sony brought out the eye autofocus, I don't know if it was the A7R2 they brought it out on first, but basically I had that, and game changer. You know, there was no more, you know, compose your shot, recompose after you focused and all that sort of stuff. It was now compose and shoot, because it would lock onto your model's eyes instantly. Absolutely great. It wasn't perfect in a lot of scenarios, but it still worked pretty well, and it was a game changer in my eyes. It really made efficiency, and you know, it was great. So your hit rate was a lot more than it was, you know, before. So really good, and it literally transformed the way I shoot portraits. And today it's still the same. You know, obviously more advancements on the live tracking and things like that. So, you know, but 5 years ago, like I say, we've gone from a little bit of face recognition before that, and now it's onto the eye. But obviously now we've got IAF on animals, birds, and all that sort of stuff as well. Far from perfect on any of the cameras, but it does work pretty well on most nowadays. So, you know, we've now got faster processors, faster readout sensors, better low noise, you know, control or whatever, high noise control. Faster SD cards, faster compact flash express cards now. The autofocus is faster, the burst rates are faster. You know, what else do we really need? You know, like I said on one of my things, it doesn't make the tea, so you know, we don't want it then. But you know, I was thinking about this the other day, and this is sort of one of the thinking points of me thinking about this A1. You know, and I'm just obviously waiting, like I said. If tech stopped today, as in like if you've got the camera you own right now and tech stopped today and they just went, right, that's the last camera we're making, would you be happy with what you've got? And I think for myself, yes, I would be. But as humans, we always want something better, faster, more flashy, you know, always something more expensive, whatever. We always want that more from things. So, you know, we're never really happy. You know, people have got to have the newest phone, they've got to have the newest shoes, they've got to have the newest car, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I think that makes a huge impact on the way we live our lives nowadays. Even though there's a lot of people out there who are very, very appreciative of what they actually own and what they've saved up for, and you know, possibly buying a 5-year-old camera because they can't necessarily afford a new one. So, you know, yeah, there's a lot of difference in people's lifestyles and stuff around the world. So, but you know, thinking about that, it made me also think about film. So also, you know, if basically tech never advanced and we were just still stuck on film, would we be happy? You know, there was a lot of great shots that I took on film, and even though they were not particularly technically correct, there were still shots that I really loved. And I think the difference between film and digital, especially because of speed generally, is the charm. So you had this, it was more of a texture, it was more of a real feel, or a lot of people have said organic over the years, an organic feel, because you actually had a physical print or physical negative to look at, you know. And I think that's where digital has sort of lost its way a little bit, because all the time we're looking at screens nowadays. So, you know, even looking through the viewfinder now, we're looking at a screen rather than looking straight down the lens. And that's almost taken a little bit away from the real world of photography, I think. Even though the EVF's now absolutely incredible, and it's a game changer, because at the end of the day, it's taken away the guesswork, and you can get what you want to get, you know, just by looking and changing your settings and everything. So technical advancements are amazing, but I just still think that, you know, the bit about film is, you know, it made us work differently. And for me, definitely with manual focus, and even back with a manual light meter and things like that, you had to get it right. And you actually had to have a real world understanding of techniques and the way you actually did things. And you had to be patient as well. Your models had to be patient because it was taking a little bit longer. But that actually, in another way, actually ended up giving you more relaxed looking shots and everything like that, because the time was a little bit longer. You know, for example, even using on digital, I had the Samyang 135 f2 lens. And where I really noticed this was when I went to North Wales with my friend Jess. And we did a shoot up there for a couple of days, and I shall put a link above a card or whatever so you can actually have a watch of the video. And it's bad, by the way. The actual photos aren't bad, but me in front of the camera is one of my early videos. So yeah, so having that lens, it's a fully manual lens. It's not that expensive, and it's actually amazingly sharp. It's beautiful, but you put it on the camera and it's down to you at the end of the day. You've got to get the focus right, you've got to get the aperture correct on whatever you need, for the depth of field you need, and everything like that. So it really opened my eyes back to being more film orientated before I had autofocus lenses on my film cameras. So when I obviously moved into Nikon SLRs, where I, more in the late 90s, where I had a Nikon film camera. So, you know, starting back where I started with Pentax ME Super, which is obviously fully manual, it had a built-in light meter, but other than that, it was down to you to deal with it. The Samyang lens, I absolutely loved it, and I've sold it now because I ended up buying the 135G Master eventually, and yeah, that's amazing, and it works better on the A7R4, but I still swap over to manual focus every now and again just to adjust things a little bit and just work slower. But yeah, with that 135 Samyang lens, the benefit of the digital is the fact you can have it in manual, and basically you have a custom button. You can have it in auto manual focus magnification, but I always have it in manual because, one, as soon as you go into manual focus, it jumps in and it's kind of annoying. So I have a custom button where I can just push the button twice and it zooms right in. You can then tweak your eyes, focus on the eye a little bit easier. And I was sort of getting sort of 2 to 5 seconds, and you think, oh, that's not that long, 2 to 5 seconds. 2 seconds on a good day. 5 seconds, you'd be like, is it in or out? And I think the difference between that and say 300th of a second with autofocus was, it just showed you in the shots how more relaxed Jess was and things like that. So it really did open my eyes a little bit on the older days rather than modern days. So using manual focus is absolutely fine, and I actually really enjoy it, especially in macro. Always used generally in manual focus because you are going to be closer to your subject, and I would literally move the camera backwards and forwards rather than actually the lens. So yeah, it worked really, really, really nicely. So yeah, I mean, the amount of mistakes I made back in film days, obviously a lot of people we did, and you kind of learnt from it quite quickly because, one, it cost you money, generally film and print. And if you were doing, obviously, for commercial side of things, you wouldn't really want to lose money at all because, obviously, you're going to lose your reputation and obviously make massive mistakes, and it costs you money rather than the customer. And obviously, with medium format, they were using Polaroid back, so you put a Polaroid back on, take a test shot, look at it, and go, yeah, that's fine, then retake it. But sometimes you would have lost that moment with the model or whatever, unless they were very, very good. And it was, yeah, just one of those things, I guess. But it was just the way it was. Manual focus with moving subjects, possibly people are thinking about. I've actually used that Samyang with a friend's horse, and she was riding it, and she wanted some shots. And I thought, well, I'll take some autofocus lenses with me, and I will actually shoot them, and then I'll also try the Samyang, see if I can actually keep up with the focus. Once you realise and remember which way you've got to go in and out, left or right, depending on which way the person's coming from, I actually did pretty well, and I was quite impressed with that. And I thought, wow, it was a good challenge, And I think a lot of the time with photography is a lot of people don't understand the challenge. I quite like shooting in manual all of the time because it's down to me to change the ISO, down to me to change the shutter speed, down to me to change the aperture, and it's more of a challenge. If I just stick it in auto, one, I don't get what I really want because the computer's making its decision. Yes, you can put auto ISO, but you're still getting a rough a rough estimate of what you really want. So for me, I like using it fully manual 99% of the time, and I'm quick enough now to adjust it as I need. So, and I rarely miss anything. So it's pretty happy with that. Where are we? Yeah, and this is where the back to the charm side of things was when I first started with an SLR camera, my sort of first proper SLR camera, which was the ME Super, and I started doing portraits and things. It was obviously I was shooting with friends, and some of my favourite shots of my friend Rosie, and I've got to find them, but they obviously film, but those shots are technically terrible. The actual shots aren't that great. They're not that, technically, on par with what I could do today. But, and the focusing was slightly out on a couple of them. But the charm and the meaning and everything else about them makes me love them, because it was something I created. Rosie, I know, loves them as well, and it's one of those things. You look back and you think, yeah, even 20 odd years down the line, they're still cool. And there's one thing about it being black and white as well. They have this sort of texture to them, and it just, for me, they just worked. And unfortunately, if I took them today, I don't think I could recreate them very well, because one, I'm using a much higher budget camera, and sort of lost the innocence of photography. So, now my knowledge is much more than I had back then, and a lot of the shots when that early, you were kind of blagging it and trying to guess the right way, and until you learnt obviously a lot more, and listened to others and learnt from other photographers and things like that, and did a little bit of reading and things. It was quite a long time before I actually got good enough really to do things without really thinking. So yeah, I mean today is a different world in the way we work compared to back then, and like I say, there's a lot of rush. We rush now compared to what, and if we don't slow ourselves down, this is where we get things like slightly wonky horizons. You might chop off a body part slightly, because you're not looking at the whole scene, you're just looking at the eyes. We've all been there, I'm sure, and I know I have. Picking the wrong depth of field, so shooting wide open all of the time, but you're too close to your subject, so your depth of field is too shallow. The tip of their nose might be out of focus, or one eye's a little bit soft compared to the other, and it suddenly becomes noticeable because you should have stopped the lens down to f2.8 rather than f1.4, for example. But then that's down to certain people's creativity styles, and what do they really go for? Yeah. So yeah, and this is where I'm saying, not saying digital is bad at all, because it's amazing what we can do now compared to what we could do a long time ago. It's it's gone bonkers, absolutely bonkers, of what we could have ever imagined 20 years ago or so. What we were going to have today. You've only got to think, 15, 16 years ago we didn't even have video on the DSLRs really. Then they suddenly appeared to be able to do it, so that was an eye-opener straight away. You could actually start videoing things as well, so that was cool. But could you imagine 30 years ago what would today would be like? We always know that technology is getting better and better, but it's the software as well. Things like high ISO noise control. So you've got obviously Topaz denoise AI, really handy bit of software. So that's worth having, especially if you're shooting high ISO and you do get a bit of grain. But it's one of those things. Today we're so clinical, and with the clinical side of things, we want super clean shots, we want super sharp, and I actually look back at those film shots of Rosie, and yeah, they're really relatively sharp, but they're also not perfect. The grain in the shots, 20 odd years ago, or even 15 years ago, no one was moaning about noise, no one was moaning about grain, because it was just part of whatever film you were using. That was its characteristics. Yeah, obviously there was Photoshop around and things like that, and you could obviously edit your shots and stuff and soften them a little bit and this, that and the other. But today, like I say, it's just this, that and the other. But I was speaking to my friend Gav up the road the other day, and he was talking about high ISO and things like that, and the fact that yeah, we do have the software that we can get rid of, but actually it's quite funny, and I do exactly the same thing on occasion, that he was saying I'm actually adding grain, especially in black and white shots, because it adds that texture feel that we were used to have with film. and it kind of makes it a little bit more atmospheric, and it just works, you know. So the fact that we're going from super clean shots to actually noisier textured shots just shows you, doesn't it, that it is what it is. So yeah, so back to that sort of thing about tech in modern day. What else do we really need? Are the cameras we've got now more than we need? I don't know. It's like saying, not, even though sometimes you take a shot and you think, oh, is that good or bad? Some people are a little bit, is this good or is this bad, or should I have done it better? There's always going to be a better way of doing something, because one, it could be a different angle, and two, your settings could be slightly tweaked, and you could be using a different lens, you could be using a different camera. Even if you push up into medium format, the difference, again, another jump in quality is there. So, I'm not saying anything is wrong, but for me, I've definitely slowed down my shoots a little bit. One, for taking a little bit more time, a little bit more care, and I think that's made all the difference. So it's one thing I've learned. But yeah, other than that, guys, do you really think we need more, in the real world? I look at the A1 tech and I think, okay, £6,500, but the list of specs it's got, I think, do I really need another camera for another 10 years? Because that ticks pretty much every single box I could ever really want. And this is where at the moment I'm kind of like, do I just keep my A7R4 and wait a year or two and see exactly what they bring out, and maybe even buy a second-hand A1, because obviously we know that the mechanical mechanism thing isn't used that often, so the wear and tear on the camera is actually minimal. Also, I've still got 2 years left on the warranty of this A7R4, so do I just make the most of that, carry on using it, and not worry about the value of this camera, and just use it, enjoy it, and actually take the shots I really can do, and then maybe upgrade later, or just go for it, invest, have it, use it, and not actually look at buying another camera for another 5, 7, even 10 years from now. And I think that's where everyone's jumped on the bandwagon. I do exactly the same thing. Oh, look at the state of that camera. Oh my God. Whoa, that's insane. It can do all this stuff, but do we really need it? That's the question. And like I said, I've got my brains up and down at the moment. And I'm just wondering, do I, don't I, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? So, yeah, like I say, it's quite a bit of cash, isn't it? To throw at something and then either regret it and think, did I really need it? But like I say, waiting for the other YouTubers to actually do their thing, release some more videos on it, and see exactly what is a possibility, and if there is any real downsides to this camera compared to whatever others can do. So yeah, I'll leave it to you guys. Please leave a comment below, and please have a think kind of what I said. Some people might agree, some might disagree, I don't know, but this is just my thoughts anyway. So don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell, and please leave comments below, see what you think, and I'll see you soon.